So eating disorders are biopsychosocial, which means part of them is biological, part of them is psychological, and part of them is social. So the biological part is genetics. So, people with eating disorders tend to have a predisposition genetically towards developing an eating disorder. Additionally, there's the psychological component, and just like most psychological disorders, that means maybe some imbalance with neurotransmitters, and then just kind of some environmental or situational triggers can set them off. Lastly, there's the social part. So that means the society that you're in can affect your eating disorder, and that kind of thing. Throughout time, as society becomes more and more focused on being really thin, then that might increase the rate of people getting anorexia. So for me, first time that I ever went on a diet was going into 10th grade. And I remember during the summer, I started watching all of the Victoria's Secret runway shows and seeing how thin the models were and thinking, I'm too fat, even though it was a perfectly healthy weight for someone my age. And so I started dieting, and just, it started out as I didn't eat lunch and that kind of thing. And then, over years and years, I ended up developing a full-blown eating disorder. And at the worst points, I wasn't eating anything in a day. Seeing models and seeing them as beautiful definitely for me played a role in my eating disorder. And I know from all the people that I've been in treatment with that that's not an uncommon experience. To have, especially now with social media being so prevalent and seeing Instagram models and all these people that are really famous, and thinking, well, their life looks great, they look happy and all of that kind of thing, and associating that with, their beauty instead of with who they are as a person and that kind of thing. So people with eating disorders are not happy. I'll put it that way. So an eating disorder is technically an anxiety disorder. So I think probably for most of my life I had anxiety, and then on top of that I ended up developing depression when I was 11, and those are super common co-occurring disorders for people with eating disorders. So usually it's not that you just have anorexia, or you just have bulimia, or you just have binge eating disorder. It's usually that you have a couple of other mood disorders on top of that. So if you're not eating, you're not making things that can make your mood better. And then it becomes this vicious cycle of your eating gets worse, your mood gets worse. And it's really, really hard to break that, especially if you're in that cycle for a long time. For me, I don't know, it was like that for 4 years. And it got to the point that, now that I'm happy, my mom can't even recognize me a lot of the time. She keeps expecting, depressed, anxious Zoe. And when I come home, happy and, that kind of thing, she just keeps expecting me to snap or that kind of thing. That's pretty crippling. And just kind of a sad situation to be in. So one of the best methods for seeking help if you have an eating disorder is going to treatment. So we are very lucky here in San Diego that we have the UCSD Eating Disorder Research and Treatment Center. You do a lot of therapy there, you have your psychiatrist there, you have a dietitian there. If you're someone and you're struggling, the best advice I would give is for you to call UCSD and try to set up an appointment with one of the people that work in their intake department. They'll go through with you what kind of symptoms you're having, how long things have been going on, and they'll be able to recommend either UCSD to be the right place for you, or maybe another therapist outside in the community. It's also really important to know that if you have an eating disorder, you are not going through this alone. There are millions and millions of people in the US alone that have eating disorders, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you are willing to work for it. Eating disorders are such a big problem because so many people can die from them. And I personally know a few people that have lost their lives to their eating disorders, which is really sad, but you know, if we don't start talking about it, that's not going to change.